This is Ricky Starks, and you're listening to Sports Guys Talking Wrestling.
When they're not covering the sports world, they're talking about the world of professional wrestling.
It's Sports Guys Talking Wrestling.
Now, with Justin Simmons, here's Stu Myrick.
Sports Guys Talking Wrestling on the horn. Stu Myrick, Justin Smash Simmons. What's up, man?
Does it really constitute sports guys if there's been no sports? I mean, unless you've been watching Belarus Premier Soccer like I have.
I've been catching up on NFL Draft, because that's in a couple weeks.
But, I mean, it's no
got the draft.
Yeah, but
that's like Christmas. That's like Christmas for football fans.
I can play manager mode on FIFA. It's the same deal.
But I can watch the draft. We can see who the next big thing for the Dallas Cowboys is going to be. I know one man that will agree with me. And he joins us on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline because I know he's a huge football fan. He is none other than the world's strongest man, WWE Hall of Famer, and one of the myriad of hosts for SiriusXM Busted Open. It is our friend, Mark Henry. Hello, Mark.
What's going on, Stu? What's up?
So are you excited for the draft?
I am, man. I mean, like you said, it's Christmas. Everybody gets some shiny new toys, and you got to figure out where they're going to work and where you're going to play with.
You're right. I saw an alert that said Kyler Murray is hoping that the Cardinals will draft CeeDee Lamb because he wants his old OU Sooner teammate to join him there, which, I'm sure that makes guys like Jim Ross happy, but, me, I couldn't care less. I want to see Kyler Murray on his back every possible chance he gets. But he's a Sooner. I'm sorry.
Once they get to the pros, as long as they're not throwing the horns down,
they're
all right with me.
That's right. I mean,
I definitely, when they're in college and we're on the college football landscape, I want to see every Sooner on their back.
That's right. He's no Baker Mayfield, and I covered Baker in high school, and I know how good of a talent he is, but he could be a knucklehead sometimes. So, we got you on because you have a new YouTube show called "It's Not a Sports Show." So, tell me what inspired you to start this YouTube show.
Man, I was talking to my guys, one of which is a movie producer and a casting director. And the other one is a very smart guy, IT guy, that just happens to be the best battle rapper in Texas history. He's won so many awards and has competed on national level. And we have the barbershop talk.
Yeah.
We have the guys at the cigar bar chopping it up talk, and we talk about sports, but that's not the emphasis of what we talk about. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of everything, and I was like, man, we should do a show like this, and he was like, man, you how many sports shows you do? I said, but this is not a sports show, and I was like, that's what we'll call it. And that's how it all came about. And I wanted to start recording shows, and we recorded a few. And we had a choice group of people that we trust and like to troubleshoot and, knock some ideas. It was like, look, it's a little grainy, it's a little rough around the edges, but I love the content. I love the guests. And being me, I've been able to call some friends and call some people I know that you would know if you heard their name. And man, it's been fun.
Well, you being you, that doesn't surprise me, sir. But I have to ask you, can you give us kind of a preview of content-wise what you're aiming at? Is it more like lifestyle, where you guys are just talking shop, or can you give us an idea?
Well, I mean, this show is not PG. We've had like professors and doctors, but we've also had adult film entertainers, wrestlers, we have actors. Just for TV hosts, you got, we had Rod Babers on. Papers, we call him
Papers Babers. Yes, Rod Babers.
Anybody that knows Rod and has done a show with Rod has like 5 feet of loose leaf paper.
Yes.
That's got all kind of scribble, scrabble, some of it legible, some not, but it's all stats and things that have happened in history and ideas that come to his head, and he write it down. It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah, Rod Babers, 1/3 of the Triple Option with RBKD, 3 to 7 weekdays on the Horn. He has single-handedly kept the paper business in, as an essential business just by the sheer amount of paper he buys. If you and you're right, when you see him, he'll have paper spread. We work with him. I work with him during Big 12 Media Days, and we're at AT&T Stadium, and he's got most of the end zone covered in nothing but loose leaf paper with all these notes, and he's going back and forth, and he's hitting this one and that one, and it's only as Rod can do.
Confusion.
Oh God, yes. Oh, absolutely. Talking with Mark Henry, the world's strongest man, WWE Hall of Famer. Follow him on Twitter at @TheMarkHenry, and you can follow the show on Twitter at @NotASports1. It's called It's Not a Sports Show. You can find it on YouTube, and it's also a podcast. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. We started off thinking that we would just do it on YouTube, and then we were advised that, it's so easy that, people can take just little snippets of it and do radio. So, it's out there.
I saw the first episode. It's on YouTube now. Like you said, you had Xavier Woods from New Day on there talking about gaming. The funny thing was, you guys started out talking about Tiger King. Yeah. And I had to laugh because, not only have you had personal experience with Tiger King, I've had personal experience with Tiger King, because he has a very ancillary connection to pro wrestling, and that would be through our friends at Texoma Pro Wrestling up in Sherman. I worked a few cards as their ring announcer. He was there filming the shows and providing commentary, which, wow. Yeah, something else. Let me ask you this. So you're doing this show, and then you've mentioned it's going to be everybody from wrestlers to actors to, just all manner of pop culture. Give us kind of a preview of what we will see in future episodes.
Just some heavy duty comedic presence. We've got George Wallace coming on. We have, of course, an Austinite, and went to Anderson High School. Gabe Luna, who was the Terminator, and he also was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and so many shows that Gabe has done is on the show. We have David Arquette, who, of course, held the World Heavyweight Championship when he was with WCW. Mm-hmm. So it's just a myriad of people that you recognize, but not talking about the world that they're in. It's like, I'm fortunate enough to have enough friends of mine that are celebrities. The last thing you want to talk about is what you do for a living. And this is people that get a chance to talk about their passion for video games, their passions for the arts and cooking or whatever. We go down rabbit holes, man, where we start talking, and then somebody's name will come up, and they'll go, "Oh, I know that guy. Yeah, I know him too. Let's call him." And then we just stalker call people and just have conversations like, "Hey, man, what you doing?" "Oh, man, living in this pandemic world." And then we'll start talking about the pandemic for a little while, and then we'll start talking about life. talking about the stuff that the fans want to hear about. People that like you go to the barbershop, there's always that one guy that's not in the conversation, that he's listening, and then he goes, yeah, I've been there before. And then you go, who the hell are you? And it's like that's what we do, man. I mean, for lack of a better term, we barbershop talk. We're guys that you would notice and recognize, but just talking from a different plane.
Right. I had to laugh with you and when Xavier was on, and you started talking about the NASCAR e-racing that they've been doing on Fox and showing the several different NASCAR drivers driving the simulators, and that's been on TV. And you went down the rabbit hole of talking about there was a gamer that was put into an F1 car, or I think it was Formula E car, and defeated or beat the track time of one of their actual drivers. And I had to. It wowed me, and I remember hearing something about this because I've covered Formula One. I've covered the U.S. Grand Prix when it comes here to Circuit of the Americas every year, and I'm just picturing my mind someone climbing into, say, Lewis Hamilton's car or Sebastian Vettel or one of those drivers. And some of the guys that drive in Formula One and even in the lower series, you might think they're gamers because they are so young. I mean, they're starting them so young. So I started thinking about, okay, what would happen if? And I've taken laps in on that track in other vehicles, and I can only imagine what it would be like to try and maneuver yourself in a open wheel car around that 3.4 miles. So, I mean, you
drove the Raptor?
I did not. I rode. I did not drive. I rode in an Aston Martin. It was driven by a young man by the name of Bruno Senna. His uncle is a Formula One legend, Ayrton Senna. Won the world title a couple times. Won in Monaco several times, just a F1 legend. And Bruno's his nephew. And so I rode around with Bruno and taking some of those curves and going down that back straightaway between turn 11 and 12, hitting like 150, 160 miles. And Bruno and I are talking about Texas barbecue, just like it's nothing. And meanwhile, I'm feeling all the G-forces just in an Aston Martin, the very ones you could pick up at an Aston Martin dealer for, however much, way more than I can afford. Yeah, but, still, it was incredible. So I can only imagine what it'd be like to be in a Formula One car doing that as well.
And the funny thing about it, the thing that tripped me out the most is I didn't know that we were going to go down that rabbit hole. And I had no clue that happened. And listening to the conversation, all I could say was, no, you're kidding me. Like, there's not a regular guy that played video games. They put him in a simulator and a specialized car, the same attributes that this guy's car would have. Mm-hmm. And he beat the pros, and they went, yeah. And I was like, that didn't happen. We got to go to the fact checkers.
Yeah.
Because we always talk about how many times you've been at a bar or you've been somewhere, club or something, and you're talking with your boys, and they say something, you go, that's not true.
Oh, yeah. I
was going to say.
Like, let's bring out the fact checkers.
Well, that's right.
And so that's one of our ongoing things is bringing out the fact checker. And also, a lot of times, we call it flexing.
Yes.
And you go somewhere and somebody goes, oh, George Clooney's calling me. And you go, oh, he's flexing. So a lot of that goes on because the circles that we run in, Dino being a movie producer and me being an actor and an athlete and a sportsman for 30 years, like I know people that you would be like, get the hell out of here. Yeah, man, I was just talking to Earl Campbell and he was saying, and they go, oh, you flexing. So there's a lot of that going on, and we get our host to do it. We bring the host in, like our guest that week or that show. We get them involved, and Gabe Luna, he was like, at some point I got to flex, and I was like, hey man, whenever you feel it, let it flow. And he said, well, I'm gonna end the show like this. He said, hold on, let me show you something. And then he starts walking through his house, and he goes to this wall, and I'm giving up the show. And he points to a picture on the wall and puts the camera up to it, and it's him and Obama.
Oh, wow.
And he goes, mic drop. And we was like, flex! and just like, just a bunch of kids, a bunch of guys having fun. That's what the show is. And people get to be in on it. You know, you get to sit there and go, damn, I wish I was there live. That's what the emphasis of the show is.
Amazing. I can understand. I can see that happening, and that's really cool. You and franchise. That's the battle rapper, correct? Franchise, yeah. And it's not like what you think. It's PHRANCHYZE franchise.
Yeah.
So you've got the two of you, and who's the third person? I forget.
Dino McGlaris. He's an actor. He's a director, producer, and did the movie Slaughterhouse. And I mean, he's a really, really classic dude. He's shot a lot of my tape for movies and ads and stuff. So we talked so much that it was only fitting that we start doing something work-wise together. And man, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
It looks like
cover wrestling with pros. Get to talk football with guys that have played at the highest level. We're gonna have Bart Scott on next week, and
nice.
Willie Colon that won the Super Bowl with the Steelers. And it's like when you got access to people that played. That Rob Baber said he wasn't that good, but he was on an NFL roster. Like, how good do you have to be?
Right. And for a little longer than a cup of coffee too. I mean, he's
played 4 years,
right, with the Giants. I know. I mean, by the way, and Willie Colon's one of the best guys on earth. We got to know each other a couple years ago at the Super Bowl, and such a really good dude. Really good dude.
Yeah, yes. See, he gets it. Say you flexing.
I'm flexing. Absolutely. Oh, I could flex. Believe me, I can flex. I got eight Super Bowls under me. I could flex. I drop your name when I flex. Come on.
Is that a flex if you admit that you flex to the person that you flex their name to?
I don't know.
It's still a flex.
It's still a flex. Mark, I have an odd question for you. Were you always this outgoing personality-wise, like growing up?
Yeah, my mom used to say all the time as a little kid, she was like, God, I wish you could make some money acting a damn fool. and I was like, here I am. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for the prayers.
Little did she know, right?
Little did she. And she got to experience it with me, man. Like traveling. She got to, being from Silsbee, your expectation of success is pretty low unless you get an education and thrive and push yourself towards a job that can take you out of that. Nobody expects a guy to become the strongest guy in the world. But my mom got to travel with me. She got to go to Barcelona to see me compete in the Olympic Games. She got to meet Oprah, Flex, and all kind of stuff, like that I feel like, man, I was able to help her leave Silsbee, even if it was just for a short time before she passed. She got to experience some things with me that, a lot of people would just go, that didn't happen. Yes, it did. and I enjoy it. I feel like I've been really, really blessed. It wasn't a byproduct of luck, because you got to be on time and you got to be prepared, and that's what creates your luck. But I feel like I got some extra blessings because I've been able to give some of those blessings back. And we talk about that philanthropic thing where you give back and help people and make it bigger than you. And, that's just the way I feel, man. I've been really, really blessed.
I couldn't agree more. Yes. And your philanthropic adventures have been just so good, not only for the city of Austin but all over the globe. Between what you do with WWE, what you guys do with Busted Open, just a fantastic effort. And you're right. It's a blessing through hard work and determination and and persistence. So it's really cool. How many times did she get to travel with you when you were still wrestling?
Oh, she went to about 10 shows, 10, 15 shows, and most of them were Texas, Louisiana. She went to Houston and Dallas and San Antonio at least 3 or 4 times a piece, and Lafayette. Whenever we did shows in Beaumont at the Ford Arena, she would do those shows. But she got pretty sick, with the cancer, and passed away. But she got to experience it, man. She thought that, and she even made a TV appearance one time. When I was Sex with Chocolate, and me and China were dating, and they showed a clip of me acting a fool somehow, and she told me to come here and pinch me by the ear and started whooping me with a purse strap. So she got to be on TV. I mean, and you can talk about sports. I mean, not to segue out of where we are, but, I heard the intro, is it sports if we're not talking, if sports is not going on? Yeah. We talk about the history of the NFL. We talk about the history of the NBA, and we had an argument. Like the first full out argument of the guys that I'm on the show with was about the college basketball greatest player that ESPN did, and everybody knows that there's no competition. That Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor is the guy. Michael Jordan was good, but Michael Jordan wasn't the best player on his team when he was in college. James Worthy was. So we started talking about all these arguments, but you have to base it on fact. You can't make it your opinion. And that's what all of these people are doing. They're making it an opinion. Oh, Michael Jordan, he was the most clutch, and you got to see that when he got to the NBA. No, Michael Jordan barely made his high school team. He blossomed late. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when they handed him a basketball the first day. He's 7'2". He was at one point in high school at Power. He was 6'9", and as a junior in high school. So he never played when he was at a deficit. He's always played at a high level. And it didn't change anything when he went to UCLA, except for the coaching that he got. But he just kept growing and kept blossoming. And there's very few guys that can say they won state championships, college championships, and pro championships. And he was the MVP of every level. Michael Jordan didn't do that.
That's true.
So you cannot give me the argument that Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player ever. He may have been the greatest Chicago Bull. He may have been the greatest guy in the finals, in the NBA finals. But when you start giving that high praise, you might want to look around. there's a big 7'2" guy with a sky hook that always is going to have something to say about that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right. His name is Mark Henry. The show is called It's Not a Sports Show. Find it on YouTube. Find it on wherever you get your favorite podcast. Follow him on Twitter at the Mark Henry. Follow It's Not a Sports Show on Twitter at Not a Sports in the numeral 1, and catch up on everything that he and the gang are doing there on It's Not a Sports Show. Mark, thank you so much for giving us your time, my friend. All the best to you.
I can't wait for wrestling to start rolling again in Texas.
I know.
So I could come to some of these shows with you.
We need to make that happen. We're going to do we may have to do some road trips and hit some of these shows that we get to see around the state, some of the independent shows. So, but yeah, all the best to you, my friend. Good luck with the show, and anything you ever need from us, you know how to find us.
Well, I want you to be a guest soon.
I do. I will be. You name the time. I'll be there.
You guys need to have a flex off.
You got it.
You need to have a flex off.
We'll do Sunday.
I want to hear a flex off.
All right. Oh, we're gonna have a flex off.
Well,
that'll be the first. That'll be the first episode of a flex off on our show.
Fair enough. Thanks again, Mark.
All right, man. It's good talking to you, brother.
Like I said, if the first episode's any indication, it's going to be a hell of a show, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you catch it on YouTube. It's not a sports show about sports and everything else that you can think of.
I can't wait for you guys flex off.
He'll probably beat me, but I can do okay. I'll do okay.
Gotta unload the Rolodex.
I may have to unload the Rolodex. So.
Do you have a Rolodex?
Somewhere.
Really?
Somewhere.
It's been a while since you used it, right?
Yeah, maybe. Wow. We got to take a quick time out. When we come back, the legendary James Beard, one of the most respected men in pro wrestling, will join us to talk about SWE and anything else he's got. That's coming up next. Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. This is The Horn.
Self-high five. Yo, monkeys, it's me, DDP, the king of bada bing, the master of the diamond cutter, the 3-time world champion, WWE Hall of Famer, and you, monkey, you're listening to the Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. Bang!
Sports Guys Talking Wrestling on the Horn. Stu Myrick, Justin the Smash Simmons. And we go from one legend to another. Joining us on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline, one of the most respected individuals, as I mentioned, in professional wrestling. He was a longtime referee back in the days of the Sportatorium, still reffing to this day, basically helped run the NWA for a time. Has been instrumental in so many wrestlers' careers and just influencing everything that's happening in pro wrestling. James Beard. Hello, James. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Stu. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. So you are involved in something called Southwest Wrestling Entertainment. Tell us about it.
Well, it's a lot of people think it's new, but it's really not. Tom Lance has had this company for about 30 years, I guess. He actually, it was LNA Productions at one time, and then he was partners with Chris Adams for a while. But Tom has been promoting for like about 30 years, and I've known him all that time, basically. Worked for him a little bit off and on way back in the day, and it kind of went dormant for a while. The business in the late '90s kind of got off the tracks a little bit, and he kind of put it on the shelf for a little while, and then just kind of out of a quirk, he was asked to promote a benefit show a few months ago. Actually a little over a year ago now. And he did that, and it turned out really, really well. He asked me to book it for him, and I did that. And from there, we've gotten to a point now to where we're on 3 streaming networks and just started on a broadcast network in Dallas. So SWE Fury is the name of the TV show. And I'm trying to do it pretty much a little bit like a throwback. We've got rules, we're trying to do things a little bit more like the way we used to do them, with competition being the key to it, and having some rules and maybe getting a little bit more back into the storytelling type format. So it's been a lot of fun up until this virus kind of put us on a shelf. So we were getting some really, really good momentum started up, and I'm looking forward to getting back to it.
And this seems to be a trend nowadays. This what you were talking about with kind of going back kind of a throwback with things like time limits and rules and everything. I've seen it a little bit with AEW. I've seen it a bit with the new NWA.
Yeah.
It seems like that style of wrestling, it's kind of one of those things of what's old is new again, and it seems to have come back in vogue. Especially when you counter it to what you see, say, from WWE or some of the other places. Talk about just how it seems like that it has come back in style.
Well, I've been preaching this for a long time, as you probably know. But and I don't believe everything old is better than everything new. I'm not trying to say that. I think there's a way to maintain some of the traditions and some of the values of the wrestling product that a lot of us grew up with and fell in love with, and still be exciting and have the kind of matches that people can really enjoy watching, but at the same time become emotionally invested in what's going on, and not just the matches but the guys, making people care about it. I think there's a big difference in making fans feel something and just making fans react to something. And I think you can do both. I think it's gotten off the rails where it's just all about getting the reaction and not about the feelings and about the storytelling and about an episodic type situation where things carry on for a while. I think it's a misnomer that people think that everyone's attention span is so short now that you can't do that kind of format. But I think that's absolutely wrong. If you look at all the really popular TV shows, the ones that have sustained, they are all episodic, and they all have storylines that carry from one week to the next and through a whole season, and finally have a finish at the end of the season, and usually a cliffhanger that brings on something for the next one. So I think it's a wrong thinking to think that fans won't follow that kind of product, and that's what I've been trying to get back to, and finally with SWE Fury, I have the opportunity to kind of do it the way I want to do it. Thanks to guys like Tom Lance and Jason Jarrett and Kevin Willard, who are really behind the office of that promotion, and they're allowing me to do things the way I want to do them, pretty much, and that's what I believe in, and I believe there's a fan base out there that's ready for that, and I'm trying to stick to it. Like I said, we got rules. I kind of throw some of the guys off a little bit, but one of our rules in our promotion is that you cannot use a closed fist above the neck. That's a disqualification. Throwing a guy over the top rope, which is an old rule from NWA days, that's a disqualification. So we're trying to get it back to where fans can watch it and understand what the rules are and know what to look for, and doing that, the wrestlers, the ones that are getting heat, can really get heat. It's not just about calling your mother a name or talking bad about a town that you're in. It's about actually getting heat in the ring, and I believe that that's something that you can do, and fans will appreciate that if you do it the right way.
It seems like the psychology of professional wrestling has been a bit of a lost art within the last couple of decades, but I think you both can agree to this, that it's kind of funny that even though professional wrestling fans know more about the inside workings of the business now than they ever had previously, it seems that all professional wrestling fans don't really realize how come somebody is so good sometimes, and a lot of that has to come down to their psychology in the ring. Because I can even remember being a kid and being a big fan of Bret Hart and not understanding exactly why at first.
It's because he made you care about him. He made you care about what he was doing in the ring and what happened to him and what happened to his opponent. That kind of thing. It's a matter of making that personal investment in people. fans have always been smart. I mean, to think that the fans from the 50s and 60s didn't know that there was something a little up with wrestling is absolutely wrong. And they've known. They just didn't care because the wrestlers and the promoters, the people that presented the product, took it seriously. They didn't wink at you. They didn't insult your intelligence for the most part. I mean, there was some crazy stuff done in wrestling forever, but for the most part, they took it seriously. So the fans took it seriously. They could allow themselves to just sit back and enjoy the product. And I think I heard an interview, or I guess it was an interview, or it was something on YouTube or something that Al Snow had made, and he was talking about the fact that a lot of the wrestling product these days is catered to a very vocal minority, which I mean, for lack of a better term, you're talking about the smart marks, basically, who know and want to critique the wrestling product, and they're very vocal about it, and they've got all these opinions and everything, but they've never actually been involved in the business, so they don't really understand everything about it, no matter how smart they are. And he made the point that most fans aren't like that. They don't care about. They may know that something's up, but they don't care. And those are the fans that you really need to, I think, cater to instead of that small minority of guys who are just vocal and are going to critique everything you do.
Complainers that complain. I remember seeing that clip from Al Snow. And you're
yeah.
right. It was so spot on with that. I mean, look, I've watched wrestling for 4 decades, and I still marvel at some of the simple things as much as I marvel at a huge aerial move. But someone that can put together a match with the simple psychology and the simple story and just bring the emotions out, it's it is a lost art. And when you get to see it, the rare time you do get to see it, it is really something special. Talk with James Beard. SWE Fury, you can catch it if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Catch it on the CW33. You can also see it on the Action Channel, Right Now TV, and you can see it on Fight TV. Our friends at Fight TV carry it as well. So, James, give us a preview. Hopefully, once this thing finally subsides and we can get back to getting together for shows and such, give us a couple things to look forward to on SWE Fury.
Well, we were really just getting started about laying out some programs, some angles, and introducing some of our main guys and trying to establish who they are to the fans. So we and that was just kind of I guess we have about 12 shows in the can. And thank goodness we had a few because of this thing. But guys like Brent McKenzie, who's I'm sure you're very familiar with Brent. He's from down in that part of the country, and he's almost an untapped talent, really. I mean, he's very well known in some of the local indies and stuff. But he's a guy I think that has a special talent that you can really count on. And of course, Tim Storm, who is, everybody knows my relationship with Tim and the former NWA champion. He is our champion right now. Moonshine Mantell, and some guys that maybe some of the Texas fans are just starting to get to know a little bit, like Niles Plonke and Miranda Lambert. I'm thinking Miranda Gordy, who is just starting really in her career and doing very well. Yeah. And there's a base there that I believe that I can build on, and I'm bringing a lot of guys. I had guys plan to come in, like the Dirty Blondes that were coming in on this next TV taping, but of course we're not going to be able to do that.
One of my favorite tag teams.
Rodney Mack and Jacobs. Jazz is our our lady champion. We just got a great crew, and a lot of guys from the Southwest area, Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, that area that I think we can draw from and not have to bring in a lot of people from way off, and to start with anyway. So we're just really getting started trying to introduce those people to the fans, and I think it was off to a pretty good start. I hope we can pick it right back up where we left off.
Well, I hope so too. I'm looking at one of the graphics. I see Super Tex, Brent McKenzie. I see Chandler Hopkins, the young gun, Dirty Andy Dalton, Barrett Brown, Adam Asher. I see a guy I love and sometimes just wanna just choke him sometimes. Nigel Rabid.
Yes.
I kid. I love Nigel to death. Nigel and I have worked together a few times. You mentioned Rodney Mack, Jazz, Miranda Gordy, of course. What a collection. And yes, there is so much talent just in this area, and it's great to see something like SWE Fury that's going to put a spotlight on that talent and show the rest of the world the incredible talent that we have here in the Southwest, especially in Texas and the surrounding areas. So, looking forward to it.
I'm trying to show it in a way that they can really show who they are. Instead of just having matches, they're involved in situations that fans can buy into and follow and become interested in, and a lot of the young guys, like Cade Carson, who's just a great talent that's just getting started in the business, and I see a lot of guys like him around that I think that we can take and mold and become very well known. Their potential is unlimited, really.
Couldn't agree more. His name is James Beard, one of the most respected men in the business. Check out SWE Fury on any of those outlets that I mentioned. And James, all the best to you. I always love talking to you. And I hope that, as I said, once this pandemic subsides, we get back together. We just had Mark Henry on. He wants to start hitting the roads, hit some of these independent shows. So we may be bringing the world's strongest man to a Fury show one of these days.
Hey, I tell you what, that guy would be more than welcome at our shows. I was telling you off the show a while ago that I saw him last year at Cauliflower Alley, and I was very, very impressed with him. A super smart guy that just he loves the business, and that's the kind of people we want to have around for sure.
He sure does. James, thank you so much. All the best to you. Be well, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Stu. Anytime, my friend.
Yeah, anything that James Beard is involved in, it's going to be done right, and it's going to be done well. So, again, he is. When I hung out with him at the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion in 2018, and I knew how respected he was, but to see people from all over the business, from all over the world, kind of gravitate to him and want to shake his hand and everything, it really opened my eyes. I knew he was a legendary figure, but wow, the impact he has on such a huge part of the business.
Well, I mean, he's always been in the business. Even now, he's still in the business, and I would have to ask him when he broke in, but I imagine that he's got to be coming upon, at least 4-5 decades in the business?
Oh, 5 decades at least. It's got to be. I mean, because like I say, he was working Sportatorium in the 80s, so I got to imagine he's probably been in longer than that. So
yeah, that's why I'm just saying, I have to go back and check exactly when he broke in, but that's, just an off the top of the head guess. I mean, that guy's seen everything.
He has.
All the changes to the business, all the fads, all the trends, and I like the product that he's putting together now, trying to take the best of those of the past and of the new style of professional wrestling, kind of blend the two together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Best luck to James and to SWE Fury. Before we take time out, I want to mention, you've been hearing it all day, Buy a Box, this fundraiser that we've done with the Horn, with Coke FM, with 105.3 The Bat. to benefit the Central Texas Food Bank. During a normal time, Central Texas Food Bank helps nearly 50,000 of our neighbors in need each week, providing them with food when they need it the most. During this COVID-19 pandemic, the food bank has seen demand for its services skyrocket and needs our help. So you can go to hornfm.com or cokefm.com. There's a link on there. You can buy a box. A $30 box will have enough healthy food items to provide 23 meals. And that will help so many families, senior citizens, veterans, kids. It is amazing how much of an impact that will make if you can buy a box. I bought a box, and in fact, I'm challenging every wrestling fan, every wrestler, every wrestling media member that I know to do the same. So again, buy a box, Central Texas Food Bank. Help them out either on Horn FM or our sister station, Coke FM. Check out the websites. They got links, and you can buy a box and help out in this time of need. It's Sports Guys Talking Wrestling on the Horn.
I am in the top 1%. This is EC3, and you are listening to Sports Guys Talking Wrestling.
So I just got off the phone with WWE Talent Relations' Mark Carano, that has told me that as of today, I've been released from my WWE contract due to the current climate, what's going on in the world, and I'm like everybody else, where I probably didn't take this as seriously as it is at the beginning, but it's affecting people's lives, it's affecting people's jobs, it's affecting the way people make a living. I'm very fortunate that WWE is still allowing me to compete in the NXT Interim Cruiserweight title tournament, but it's very likely that those will be the last matches I ever have. There's a lot of people I'm not going to get a chance to say goodbye to that I really loved, that I really cared about, that make me a better person. And again, I'm very fortunate that I still get that. Other people won't get that. But if these are the last three matches I have, I just want everybody watching at home to know that you'll have my all. You'll have everything. It's not about a title anymore. It's about my life. It's about feeding my family, paying my bills. So if I don't make an impression, if I don't win, that's it for me. So I just want everybody to know that you're all going to get everything I have.
Absolutely heartbreaking. Sports Guys Talking Wrestling, Stu Myrick. You just heard Drake Maverick from WWE, sadly, formerly of WWE. Of course, we knew him as Rockstar Spud as well. Provide a little bit of context. So anybody that's listened to us for any amount of time, you know we record the radio show on Tuesday nights. That way it's in the can. We get it to the radio station so they can air it on Wednesdays. And we had it done with Mark Henry and James Beard and everything. But then today happened. Right now it's Wednesday about a little after 6 p.m. Central here in Austin. And unfortunately, WWE came out and had some breaking news on the heels of reducing costs. WWE has released 20 some odd superstars, a huge list of superstars that are no longer with WWE. To help me break this down, the first person I thought of to call and try to help sort this out from the Sporting News and Between the Ropes podcast, Brian Fritz. Brian, can you remember a bigger group that has been cut like this by WWE?
I don't ever remember 20. I mean, I remember what was the one pharmaceutical scandal that they had years ago? And I think they cut 11.
Right.
There's been a couple other times where they've gotten rid of, somewhere between like 8 and 12, maybe. Those Black Fridays, as we've heard, or Black Mondays, right after even WrestleMania and whatnot. But I don't ever remember, we're talking 20 talent at least. We've got 9 producers that have been furloughed. And the thinking is that the cuts are not over yet.
Yeah, that's right. That's the thing. And you're right. It was always seemed to be right after WrestleMania. There was always that Black Monday or Black Friday. They decided to release several talents, and usually it's like 6, 8, 10. We haven't seen that in the last couple of years. It did. In fact, it was quite the opposite. It seemed like WWE was trying to sign everybody they could.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing.
Is
it's
ironic.
An arms race for them. I mean, and that's another reason why they're doing this is because they feel like they have plenty of, payroll that they can cut because it was so excessive, or they had so much of it because, with there being so much competition in wrestling, and especially with AEW coming on board, WWE said, we're just going to try to sign everybody.
You're right. It's, and the list, it's, a couple of names that stand out. First of all, Anderson and Gallows from the OC, who just signed 5-year deals not too long ago, right?
Yeah, last year they signed deals. They signed 5-year deals that pay them each either $700,000 or $750,000 on their downside.
I mean, that's so. Yeah, you sign, and then a year later, it's kind of like the NFL. Nothing's ever guaranteed. Zack Ryder, Kurt Hawkins have been released. Mike and Maria Kanellis, a.k.a. Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis Bennett. No Way Jose. The Colognes. Rusev got his release. Now, I guess you can't be too sad because it seemed like Rusev was kind of wanting to be released. He hadn't come to terms with a new agreement. They haven't used him on TV in months. So that one seems like it was just a matter of, he got what he wished.
That's kind of the ironic thing is because forever we've heard that some people in WWE want their release. They want to be able to go out there on the open market. There's only going to be so many slots in AEW, but if everything is normal, then you would think that AEW would be interested in not everybody, but with some talents that could become available. And for the other ones, I mean, there are other places to work. I mean, it's not going to be on the grand stage of WWE, but there could be plenty of other opportunities elsewhere. But the ironic thing right now is that for some people, even if they did want the release, I'm sure they don't want it right now, considering everything that's going on in the world. You want that stability of having a job. And then, once you get on the other side of this, then if you get released, and the world's back to normal, that's a totally different thing.
You're right. And this was done, purely as a cost reduction move by WWE. We started seeing the first releases around, say, 1 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Started with a group of 7, I believe. One of those, of course, you just heard, Drake Maverick, formerly known as Rockstar Spud, and of course he posted that tearful message on Twitter, and I tell you what, you talk about someone that just breaks your heart, because although he wasn't being used a lot, he was slated to be in this tournament for an interim cruiserweight champion, and that's going to be kind of ironic that we will still see him in this tournament, even though he's already been released.
Right. And how weird is that from a standpoint that, and I mean, I don't know who made the call on that. I don't know if that was him saying, hey, I really want to be a part of this still, or if they said, hey, you're still slated to do this. I don't know. I don't even know if it really matters entirely that much. But it feels weird knowing that this guy got cut, but he's still going to be a part of the show tonight.
Yeah, that is just going to be so weird. Talk with Brian Fritz from the Sporting News on today's releases by WWE. There was Kurt Angle, the WWE Hall of Famer, who I guess was under an active wrestler contract. I thought maybe he was under a Legends contract, but apparently he was listed among those being cut.
Right, and I'm guessing, and this is just speculation, but my guess is he probably was under a talent contract, but his role with the company was more of a producer / ambassador, I believe. So, for whatever reason, I don't think he was on a Legends contract. He was doing some work backstage as a producer, though, but he was not listed with the other producers who, the 9 of them so far have been furloughed. So, they weren't outright released. They're just not getting paid for the time being and can be brought back without being cut.
Right. Yeah. Those producers, Lance Storm, who just closed his school not too long ago before he joined WWE, Mike Rotunda, Shane Helms, Billy Kidman, Pat Buck, Sean Daivari, Scott Armstrong, and Sarah Stock. And you're right.
Can I give you a really ironic thing here?
Yes.
IRS was cut or furloughed on tax day.
I know that. I saw somebody that said that. I was like, can this just get any weirder with everything that has been happening with this pandemic and the world situation and the situation here in the United States? Now let's just make it a little more weird that the man known as IRS gets cut on tax day, or at least what was supposed to be tax day.
Right. All of this is so strange, and yeah, I mean, there's so many different layers to this, and that we probably should have seen it coming. But when you talk about WWE as a business, hey, they're a publicly traded company. They have to answer to shareholders. That being said, with the amount of money that company is still bringing in because of those guaranteed television contracts, unless there's some other information that we do not know about where they were getting pressure from Fox or NBC Universal that could change the amount of money that they have coming in, much less that they have to keep doing live shows every week, which is something that obviously they're doing. WWE could easily afford, to pay everybody those contracts and not make any cuts, or at least this, level of cuts. But they would not reach the same kind of profit margin that they had projected. And that's what this is all about. It's not about, can we afford it? It's, do we need to make these cuts to make our profit margin with our shareholders and make them happy? That's all this is about, because they can afford to do it otherwise. And guess what? The stock has gone up today because they've made these cuts.
Yeah, I mean, and that's sadly that seems to be the trend sometimes in business when a company lets go stock. We here in Austin we always hear about when Dell does layoffs, because we all have friends that work for Dell. And ironically, when they do a layoff, they haven't done it in a while, but when they do a layoff, Dell stock usually goes up a little bit. And that's kind of one of the things, I guess, the surprising thing about it is, like we said, this hasn't happened in a while. Releases haven't really happened. You saw, the Revival were released last week, but that seemed to be more of, look, they're about to finish the contract. Let's just release it. And it was a surprise. Yeah, but you didn't tie
they were on their way out, though. They had already reached their downside guarantee, so they weren't going to be getting any more money because WWE was not putting them on the road unless it was like small merchandise checks, which they'll still get. And I believe one of their contract had already expired, and the other ones, I think it was Dash, still had, like 8-9 weeks left on it because they extended his because he had an injury last year. But they just said, what's the point? Let's just do it right now. So, and everybody else, I think we're all watching with bated breath to see how much worse this could possibly get. Hopefully it's not, but everybody's got their eye open right now going, okay, what else are they going to do?
Well, yeah, it seemed like every 10 minutes, that one article they put on WWE.com, you kept refreshing it, and they kept putting more names. And it went that way for at least two almost 3 hours. Listing all the others. We mentioned Carter Hawkins, Zack Ryder, No Way Jose, the Colognes, Mike Chioda, he's been a referee with WWE since like '89. He's been there
31
forever.
years. He's been there. I don't even refer to him as Mike Chioda. I refer to him as senior referee Mike Chioda.
Exactly.
Okay. because that's what he is, man. That guy's been there forever.
It breaks your heart, but at the same time, like you said, there are going to be opportunities for a lot of these guys, whether it's in AEW or, maybe, say for instance, Mike Bennett decides to go back to Ring of Honor and reform the Kingdom with Matt Taven. You've got Anderson and Gallows could go AEW, go back to New Japan, rejoin the Bullet Club, or maybe fight the Bullet Club. Who knows? But
there's so many different questions that go into all this, because it's when does the world get back to normal, and what other wrestling promotions are still alive, because New Japan's going to be there, AEW is going to be there, I'm sure Impact is going to be there, but their payroll isn't that big anyway. But when it comes to some of these bigger, independent groups, or that are around the United States especially, which ones are still going to be there? Yeah. Which ones can continue, because they're getting hit hard. I mean, obviously they're not guaranteeing contracts, but it's just like there's so many different factors that go into this. Like, did they lose money from their regular outside of wrestling jobs that they can still put on shows? How much can they afford? How much expendable income is there for other people to want to say, hey, you know what? Let's go out to the wrestling show tonight. We'll spend our hard-earned money on that. And on top of that, it's like, when is this going to be? Because some of these guys, obviously everybody wants to get back to work right now, especially guys that just lost their jobs. And that goes for any profession. And hell, I mean, they might not be able to figure out where they're going to be going for, another year.
You're right. In fact, it was, they had a report on CNN about the mayor of Los Angeles is talking about they may not have concerts or sporting events until 2021, which, you imagine what that will be like in LA. They've got the brand new stadium that the Chargers and the Rams are supposed to move into, and concerts. If that starts to be a trend in other parts of the country, definitely wrestling shows are going to be part of that. And yes, we can't gather, can't. That means no tickets, no merch sales, no concessions, parking, whatever you can figure on a source of income from a wrestling event. So,
can we just say that WrestleMania 37 is more likely to be in Tampa than Los Angeles?
And that's going to be another thing to think about if that turns around. That LA's not going to do anything, not going to have any gatherings until next year. Could it be that they decide to push the LA WrestleMania to 2022 and give Tampa 2021 as kind of a makeup for this year?
There's so many different things about all of this that we don't know, won't know. Who the hell knows?
Right.
I mean, with all of this, I mean, hell, look at the whole story about WWE still doing, they're doing live shows. I mean, last Friday, they're set to tape, for 4 days in a row. They're going to tape like 4 or 5 weeks of television for Raw and SmackDown and 205 Live. And then that afternoon, they're taping SmackDown. And then Vince goes, hey, guess what? We're going to do live shows beginning on Monday again. And I don't know what the factor went into that, if that was because their television contracts only allow them to do X amount of live or tape shows before they don't get their full payment or whatever. We'll see if we get an answer to that. I know Fox and NBC Universal haven't responded to that, but they're going ahead. They're doing their live shows. And, the state of Florida, the Governor Ron DeSantis there says, hey, they're essential business. And everybody's like, wait, pro wrestling is essential business? And he threw that out there. And, everybody's kind of scratching their head. And then you realize this could be political from the standpoint that Linda McMahon is involved with Donald Trump, a Donald Trump super PAC to help him get reelected. And that same day that super PAC announces that they're going to be spending $18.5 million in Orlando and Tampa. So that's, I'm sure that plays into it a little bit. They're trying to be friendly and trying to reinvigorate sports in that state. There's also stories about, Vince McMahon, has the XFL go bankrupt, pulled the plug on that. As quickly as possible. And, he had already sold X amount of stock over, a couple of years ago to, he had put aside over $300 million that he was prepared to lose, at least $300 million for the first 3 years of that thing. But realized this just isn't going to happen in today's market. We're not going to get those TV contracts coming up here for this thing. And on top of that, I don't want to lose any more money on this because it could affect my bottom line with WWE. You know, I'm sure those all play factors. I don't know what was the end all be all, but you know that those had to be big factors and everything. So he said, pull the plug on it now. I lose my $100+ million, but I'm not going to lose any more on this. We'll declare bankruptcy on it. And just recently, he also sold some other stock and got another $85 million. So, I mean, he's making sure he's got his war chest of cash, you know, because he's trying to protect himself and protect WWE.
Yeah, which, I mean, it's business. I get it, and business is business. You're right. I mean, and I remember, you know, I think it was yesterday, looking at the filings, you know, all the creditors, and they mentioned like Bob Stoops, who was the coach of the Dallas Renegades. Of course,
he's owed over $1 million.
Yeah, former OU head coach. They met University of Houston because they were using their stadium for the Houston Roughnecks. They owed all these different entities so much money. I think University of Houston is going to be out like $300,000 because of that. So,
I mean, like you mentioned Bob Stoops, you know, and they said, you know, he's owed. It's like just over $1 million. It's just like this guy went into this with the best intentions. I understand Bob Stoops has got some money, but at the same time, $1 million is $1 million, you know? And it's just like he went into this with the best intentions and everything. And just like, hey, you know, we're going to ride this out. We're going to do this. And nobody can see a pandemic coming, but then to file bankruptcy on it to where he doesn't have to pay. It's just like, dang, man. I'm like, and, you know, he just doesn't care. It's just like, you know, everybody's got to suck it up. And if somebody wants to make an enemy, then fine. You know, I'm going to do what's best for me.
Well, and you know, the ironic thing is that Stoops turned down several NFL jobs. When he left Oklahoma, he was done with coaching. At least that's what he said. He wanted to spend time with family. You know, the same old rhetoric we hear from every football coach. So when he got hired, I was a little bit surprised, but figure, okay, maybe this is going to be him testing the water, see if he's still got the energy to where maybe he could go NFL. So we'll see what happens.
How do you feel if you're Oliver Luck, who was basically the number 2 person in the NCAA? And many people thought he was going to be the next person in charge of it whenever Mark Henry decided to step down. And instead, he leaves to basically take the top position with the XFL. Poof, gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And Oliver Luck's one of the most respected individuals in college athletics. I know for a fact he was slated. He was like on top, you know, among the top candidates to be the new athletic director here in Texas or at the University of Texas before Chris Del Conte took over and left TCU. So you gotta feel for him as well. Although I gotta imagine he's still going to be, you know, in line for some of those gigs if and when that time comes with the NCAA. So
he'll get an AD spot. I'm quite certain.
Oh, absolutely.
He's so highly respected. Just, you know, if his goal or if he had sights on running the NCAA, you know, I don't know if that's going to be in the cards anymore, but he'll land on his feet somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking to Brian Fritz from the Sporting News on today's breaking news about the WWE releasing 20 some odd talent. So, you know, we mentioned NXT. You know, none of the names listed so far are NXT talent. It is expected. It seems like everybody's expecting it may happen maybe after tonight's show. 2 names,
some trainers as well.
Yeah, and that'd be trainers, which, you know, they've, you know, a lot of guys that have been, you know, hired by NXT to be trainers. So that, you know, that's going to go along with those producers that got furloughed. Before this is all said and done, do you have a sense of an over-under on how many talents are going to be finally by the time it's done, how many talents get released from WWE?
If you don't count producers and trainers, I mean, I almost hate to guess because it's, you know, you don't want to wish that on anybody, but no. I mean, WWE has so much talent under contract. I mean, I could see 40.
Oh, at least.
You know, yeah. You know, I mean, it depends on how deep they want to go when it comes to, you know, NXT cuts. And, I know before we even start taping, you mentioned like it feels like a lot of these are Raw, so I don't know if that means, could they be doing SmackDown and do some more cuts then? I mean, I don't know if this is going to be something that they want to get out there and, like just rip the Band-Aid off and have it done by the end of tonight or by midday tomorrow, or if this is going to be something that lingers over the next, 3, 4, 5 days.
Right. And I know a lot of it had to do, like, for instance, today, it had to do, they were announcing the names after they had contacted that individual and tell them, they've been released. So, which, okay, that's kind of the way you're supposed to do it, but still, it just made for some interesting things. I wonder with if any cuts from NXT come from some of the people they've recently signed, maybe the wrestlers that have maybe just started their training in NXT, they decide, look, for now, go back, do what you're doing, and contact us later.
Maybe. I mean, who knows what they're thinking right now? And I think everybody's kind of waiting right now to see who's going to be on NXT television this week. And obviously not everybody's on the roster is ever on there in just one given week. But I think everybody's going to be looking at that, and then they're going to wonder, like, right afterwards, do we start seeing a rollout of cuts, or if that's something that waits until the next day. But NXT seems like a place where they could make a lot of cuts. Now, the thing is, too, though, remember, NXT talents are not making as much money as people that are on Raw or SmackDown. So even if they make a lot of cuts there, it's not like it's as much money, but that's not the way WWE is going to look at it. It's still, it adds up at some point.
It's still a number that they can count. So let's talk about other companies. What happens with, whether it's AEW or Impact or Ring of Honor or MLW? Could we see something similar coming up with some of those, with any of those companies?
I don't really think so. AEW, well, they have guaranteed contracts. I think they understand that it would be very bad PR for them to do that right now, after they just launched television. And they want to be looking like we're the good guys. They're not publicly traded. They're, privately owned. So they don't have the same kind of pressures business-wise as Vince McMahon does with WWE. And obviously their owners are billionaires. So, yeah, it's not ideal for them, but they can afford it, to keep everybody under contract. And they just signed a television contract earlier this year. So, I don't think they're going to be doing anything. I would be surprised if they went out and signed talent right now. Maybe they'll sign somebody, one or two people, but I don't think it'll be a lot. I don't think Ring of Honor is really going to do anything either. They're owned by Sinclair. There's extremely deep pockets there as well. But, hey, if their parent company of Sinclair said one day, hey, we've got to make some cuts overall to our business, could I ever see a day that they just say, do we really need the wrestling company? And they just, got rid of Ring of Honor? I think it's far-fetched, but I don't think it's impossible. Okay. So, but I think that's further down the line. But as for right now, I don't think Ring of Honor is going to do anything. I don't know if Impact's really going to do anything. I don't know how many people even have guaranteed contracts there or how much money it is. Their owner has money as well. So I don't think we're going to see anything with these other, major companies. New Japan, they're not going to do anything right now. I just don't see it because they don't have the same kind of pressures as WWE does from the standpoint of they're publicly traded. These other companies are not. So yeah, they're not making money. They're probably losing money, but they don't have shareholders to answer to.
Right. They don't have to worry about profit margin, and reporting at the shareholders. You're right. While we're here, you mentioned something that was found out this week that, Florida has deemed WWE and pro sports as essential business. And mentioned, pro sports with a national, TV, coverage and so on and so forth. So that leads to the question of, we know, for instance, AEW has several weeks of content in the can, I think at least through mid-May. could we see AEW go back to Florida, find somewhere in Jacksonville or nearby to, tape content, whether it's, they do weekly just like WWE does, or maybe they stick with their whole let's tape several weeks of content in 3 or 4 days and have it in the can, as well as other sports. I mean, I heard somebody talking today about the possibility, say, Bob Arum approaches Vince about using the Performance Center for boxing, or Dana White decides maybe he wants to do a UFC event there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all on the table. I mean, Bob Arum flat out said, he might contact Vince about running the Performance Center because, when the governor of Florida put out that executive order, he put out there, he didn't just say WWE, he said all sports were deemed essential business as long as they didn't have a crowd.
Right.
So, and I think a lot of that was cover for WWE. But, I think it opens the doors for boxing to take place there. I think it opens the door for if AEW wants to run, outside of where the Jaguars play in Jacksonville, they could do that, when it comes to upcoming tapings. I don't know if they're going to go back to doing live anytime soon, but it opens up the door for a lot. I mean, when you mentioned Dana White, I mean, he's friends with Vince. Maybe he does that. There's already been talk, though, that, Nevada has been a little bit loose with everything, too. And, the UFC just built this whole, event center for themselves over there, basically.
Right, the Apex.
So, and that's someplace where they would probably do everything. I mean, there's been all this talk about Fight Island, and I don't know, it sounds so grandiose and so ridiculous that Dana White's made everybody believe in it, but at the same time, there is some belief that he's just blowing smoke up your butt, and, the plan is to try to do everything in Las Vegas.
Yeah. So, it's just continuing the uncertain times, the uncharted territories we were calling at the beginning here. Brian Fritz, follow him on Twitter at Brian Fritz. Catch his stuff on sportingnews.com. And you and Michael have revived the Between the Ropes podcast, at least in the interim.
I wouldn't say that yet.
Okay.
Maybe. But we did do a couple of watch-alongs for a couple of past WWE events, and then we did a live watch-along on YouTube and Facebook and everything for WrestleMania, for both nights of WrestleMania. We were on there. We was watching and talked as the show was going on, and, had some snacks and drinks and all that fun stuff from our different locations. And we had a couple of guests on and just kind of invited everybody hey, watch the show with us and try to have a good time. So we'll see. There could be more coming.
Well, I hope so. But until then, all the best to you. Hey, real quick answer. Who do you want to see in the next Boneyard match?
Ooh, now that's a very interesting question. Obviously, we got to see Taker in there.
It's got to be Taker, but who?
Yeah, who could Taker face? That would be interesting.
There is only one name that comes to my mind.
And who's that?
Sting.
Well, that would probably make the most sense.
Yeah.
If Sting can get cleared, and for something like that, it's much different than actually doing, a regular match.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more precautions that can be taken with that. Sting makes a lot of sense. It's funny because I have not been in favor of that match lately, for the last couple of years. But they did it under those circumstances. Then yeah, I'd be all for it. When it comes to somebody else on the regular roster, I guess Bray Wyatt would be the only other one. But I mean, are you going to try to have those worlds cross, or do you have a true Boneyard match?
I think you keep those worlds separate. I don't think I don't want to see the fun house, colliding with the Boneyard. I think it just keep them separate. I think Bray Wyatt should continue. Maybe he's got a couple people in mind for his next Firefly Funhouse match, but I think for now, Undertaker and whether it's someone that's currently on the roster, or at least as of today, or if they find a way to convince Sting to do it. I would love to see it. Again, not every week.
I think
but
Sting would be all for it as long as Sting's in shape.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Brian. Thanks so much for your time. All the best, and we'll talk again soon.
You got it, Stu. Thanks for having me, man.
Definitely just a surreal and dark day today in WWE with all these talents, and as much as I hate to say it, expect more. Like what Brian and I were talking about, and whether it's NXT, SmackDown talents, you wonder if maybe they'll let some NXT UK talents go, especially with the difficulties of traveling back and forth, and you wonder how viable NXT UK could be right now with their current situation. This is probably going to pretty much grind to a halt any aspiration of an NXT Japan or any other global expansion for that matter. So we'll try to keep you up to date as best as we can. We'll, if any more happens, we may try to do another kind of a pop-up episode this weekend. If we hear more releases, I'll get Brian or get somebody else to cover that in detail. And, of course, we'll talk about it next week on the radio show. We'll come back from this timeout. You'll hear the rest of the radio show, have a few more nuggets, and then close out Sports Guys Talking Wrestling.
This is the worldwide desperado, the Callahan Death Machine himself, Sami Callihan, and you're listening to the Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. Thumbs up, thumbs down. No, actually, give them a thumbs up because they're pretty good.
Sports Guys Talking Wrestling on the horn. Stu Myrick, Justin Smash Simmons. We haven't talked. I need to get Sammy on soon. I love talking to Sammy. I don't know how well he's doing now with this whole, ICU reality is lost thing, but, usually I like talking to him.
Well, he has his hands full coming up pretty soon.
He does. If you haven't heard, Impact Wrestling, they were going to do this Rebellion pay-per-view. Well, now, instead of a pay-per-view, it's going to be a 2-night television event. It'll be on Access TV April 21st, so next Tuesday and the following Tuesday, April 28th. Among the cards so far, the two big matches, the aforementioned Sami Callihan is going to take on the soon-to-be Impact Wrestling Hall of Famer Ken Shamrock, and then for the Impact World Title, Tessa Blanchard defending in a triple threat match against Eddie Edwards and Michael Elgin. That's going to be a tough one.
It's going to be a fun card to watch. Yeah. It looks like.
Tessa's tough. It's going to be. That's going to be a hell of a match. So make sure you check that out. Impact Wrestling Rebellion 2-night TV event, April 21st and 28th on Access TV. Speaking of pay-per-views, AEW has announced that their pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, if you have not heard, the MGM Grand, because of the pandemic, has canceled all events through the end of May. That included AEW Double or Nothing that was supposed to be happening at the MGM Grand. Well, here's the thing. Double or Nothing is going to happen still. It's still going to be on Saturday, May 23rd, but it won't happen in Las Vegas. It will still be available on pay-per-view, DirecTV, Dish, BR Live. International fans can purchase the event at Fight TV. They have the live event that they originally scheduled has been rescheduled for MGM Grand Garden Arena for Saturday, May 29th, 2021. So they will do a show at the MGM Grand, but it won't be until next year. Double or Nothing will still take place on Memorial Day weekend this year, but they haven't said where. My guess will be closed set, essential personnel only.
Private island?
Let's hope it's not a private island. Maybe it's Florida after this whole essential business thing that they declared. If WWE can do it, why not? But anyway, so that's a quick update on AEW Double or Nothing. I got to suspect that the TV we will see will lead up to that, especially with the addition of Matt Hardy, the addition of Brody Lee as the Exalted One. Wonder if maybe they'll try to work in Blood and Guts into that. Their version of War Games. We'll see.
Ooh, it's tough to say.
Yeah, it's tough to say, but we'll see what happens during AEW Dynamite Wednesday nights on TNT. And that'll do it for this week's Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. You can follow Justin the Smash Simmons on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch at The Smash Simmons. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Stu Myrick. That's STEWMYRICK. You can follow the show on Twitter at SGTWATX. You could find us on Facebook and Instagram at Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. We are proud to be the official broadcast partner of the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, and we're proud to be part of the great lineup you hear every day on the flagship station for the Texas Longhorns. We are The Horn. Catch us Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Central on The Horn, or you can catch us anytime on demand by going to hornfm.com and click on the on-air tab, or by catching us wherever you get your podcast. Our thanks to the world's strongest man, Mark Henry, and James Beard for joining us tonight. Our thanks to you for giving us a little bit of your time tonight. For Justin, I'm Stu. We hope to see you soon at the matches.
Goodbye and good night. Bam!